Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. With us this month is Berardo Paradiso, president of IACE, the Italian American Committee on Education. And we visited also John Velluto at his exhibition Fugazi at Stanford Gallery in Brooklyn. Berardo Paradiso has helped grow enrollments in Italian courses from kindergarten through grade 8, and he has also helped to reinstate the advanced placement exam in Italian. Let's tell our viewers about IACE and what it is.
Yes, thank you very much for having me here, Anthony. IACE stands for an association of teachers in the beginning promoting the Italian language in the tri-state area. So it is in Italian an ente gestore. That means that they receive funds from the Italian government, and these funds, they are distributed to schools in the tri-state area to promote the Italian language and culture.
Exactly.
And 15 years ago, when I became president of the IACE, I was president of the Italian American Chamber of Commerce. So I finished my mandate at the chamber, and at the time, the consul general told me, said, Berardo, I need a manager. So I had to structure the IACE in something that was more close to my vision of how a language should be promoted. I took the IACE as a product, and I asked myself what I should do to put this product on the shelves and have the people to buy it or to take it. And I have to say that with the board of very intelligent people that they are around me, and with the support of the Italian consulate and the embassy, today we have in the tri-state area 300 schools, almost 500 teachers, 69,000 students learning Italian through the curriculum program, and we have an extra 8,000 students learning Italian through other programs that we have with the IACE. So we are the first ente gestore or promotore in the world. A language is something that at early age is being chosen by the parents. And then actually when you have to choose between Italian, French, and Spanish or Chinese, many parents, they think that Italian, it is not as useful than others. So we changed the strategy. We went to the children, and many of them expressed the desire to get out of the class, to see Italy. So that's what we did. We established a very strong cooperation with Italian companies, and we started bringing kids back to Italy. And when they came back to the classes, and the other kids, they asked them, where have you been? Said, take Italian, it is cool. So from that we passed from 5,000 to 75,000.
Yeah.
And we have a demand now that is behind our control, in the sense that we don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough funds, because now we are competing with major languages. And I will just mention some of them: Chinese, Korean, Japanese, French. Being Italian and Italian literature and Italian language, you know, I think it is a soft sell, what I call, because we have so much to offer.
Yeah. IACE historically has served from, well, let's say, K through 7, K through 9, what was called the Scuola d'Obbligo. And instead, in the last 5 to 7 years, IACE has been able to move forward into high school.
Yes, you're correct, because the original law was made to help children from immigrants, Italian to United States, to keep in touch with their culture and language. The funds that we received from the Italian government, they were strictly from K1 to K9.
Yes.
So later, when there were no more Italian immigrants, we told the Italian government, look, we have to extend to high school because we need to extend these grants to high school, because from high school we have the AP program. From the AP programs we have universities, and from the university we have new teachers. Extending the program, we realized that 65% of the students taking Italian language and culture, they are not from Italian origin. So that's great, because
That's great, yeah.
the Italian government realized the success of this approach, and I was very fortunate to have some Italian journalists related to the business that they interviewed me, and they showed them technically what is the parallel between the Italian export to a country, and in that case to United States. Expanding the Italian culture and the Italian language, automatically you expand export in that country, and they start promoting that concept all over the world.
Yeah.
I estimate that in the United States today, from K1 to university, we have maybe 200,000 students studying Italian. So when a survey was done through students in high school, and they asked them, if you had the opportunity to learn a foreign language, which language you would choose? But if they're not, 37.5%, they said Italian. But we are competing with very large countries that they understood the importance of the language and culture. And just to give you an idea, Italy invests for the Italian language and culture around the world approximately $15 million. France, 300 million. China, 2 billion. We are lucky that the 67% of the world's beauty and art are
Italian in origin, right.
So Italy in the list of countries to be visited is maybe number 2 or number 1, but there is a challenge.
IACE also, well, pre-COVID, IACE had a summer program.
We have 2 programs in Italy, and that is a source of our self-funding. We made an agreement with an Italian company that specializes in trips to Italy for students. And so we have a program that we take classes, naturally. They pay for the trip, but we do fund the teachers, because for every 6 kids, we have a teacher. So we have 12 people, we have 2 teachers. And we send approximately, through the IACE, 1,000 students a year. But we have also a summer program with NARNI. And in that program that we are running for the past 10 years, we send 20 kids with a teacher, and they stay for 2 weeks, and they are part of this program that is run by Cristiana Pegoraro, that she's a pianist, an artist, and it is very much a meeting with international artists in many forms of art, and the IACE is part of this melting pot, and the kids, they have an opportunity to learn about theater, music, opera, and actually visiting the different cities around, from Recanati to Assisi, Perugia.
And you have some other programs as well.
The only program that we have started in presence is a program that we have on Saturday morning with the children.
Okay.
So we did an agreement with a few museums in New York, and we have teachers taking these children to the museums. So we have the Italian through art. And in collaboration with the Istituto Italiano di Cultura and the consulate, it is running quite nicely.
Good.
We did start taking in consideration returning in person to Italy, to Ferrari, to Ferrero, to pizza. So we, man in pasta, we call it. We teach the kids to
hands-on
to make their own pizza, learning the ingredients, and to the opera, naturally, that will start soon. You know, the most ambitious program is with Ferrari, because they go there and they build the car of the future. You know, so I think all these programs, they are quite effective.
Let's talk about the advanced placement program in Italian. It's had its ups and downs, and you've been involved intimately with bringing it back up. We've all been involved in that.
Yes, the AP program was stopped by the College Board because previous, I will call promoters, they undervaluated or overvaluated the possibility of the exam. It is something, once again, that has to do with marketing. So the College Board, at the time, the ambassador in Washington was Terzi.
Yes.
They asked, if you want back the AP programs, we have to redo the rules and regulation, and you have to pay for. So finally, after strong negotiation, they asked for $3.3 million to put back the AP program, and they asked for a minimum of 2,500 students in 5 years. The embassy was very much involved. They involved me, Judge Massaro, and many others to look for the 3.3 million. And in less than 2 years, we reached 2,500.
Right.
And naturally, COVID came, and I think that we were stopped. And now we are back this year. I try to have the number from the College Board. They are not releasing the number by state. But once again, in the tri-state, I don't want to brag, but it still represents 65% of the national exam.
Yeah.
And what we did in the tri-state area is to promote the AP by giving an incentive to the teachers and to the kids by prepaying the cost of the exam.
Right.
That was a success, and this year we know for sure that we are above 2,000.
Right.
And I am quite positive that we will go back to the old numbers.
So this is the year of Dante, commemorating 700 years of his death.
Dante 700 has been promoted all over the world. So many people, they know Dante being a writer of La Divina Commedia, the Divine Comedy. Dante was much more than the writer. I think it was the person that, I don't know if he did knowing that he was doing or not, but he saved Italy because he put together, once again, the Italian language. He was the creator of the new language.
That's right, yes.
He used the best words, the most communicative word of the different dialects that we had all over Italy, and they created the La Lingua Nuova. This is a Lingua Nuova, and after actually was extended with his art, with La Divina Commedia. But Dante was also, I think, for us, I will call a source of pride, because Dante gave a new style, stile nuovo, to many writers of his time.
Right.
Many big writers around the world, now we discovered, they very much read Dante, and they used Dante as a new platform to introduce their literature. And he was also a politician. People, they don't know that Dante, unfortunately, was in exile for most of his life. He died in exile.
Right, in Ravenna.
In Ravenna, and unfortunately, as you well know, the Fiorentini, they are known to be very, very rough, one family against the other. So in the beginning, they had the Guelfi and Ghibellini, and when the Guelfi, they took over and they created the Republic of Florence, they divided from white and black. And Dante happened to be on the wrong color side, because the Pope didn't like the Republic of Florence, so he lived in exile. He inspired many, many people. Beside in literature, he inspired people in the painting. If you think about Delacroix, if you think about De Chirico, and Giotto,
Gustave Doré.
Gustave Doré, and if you think how many paintings they have with Virgilio and Dante, and to not speak about other passage of the purgatory, hell, and very little about paradise.
Yeah, that's true. I guess hell is the most, what can we say, intriguing just because of what he does, right? So he puts popes in hell. He puts major figures of his day in hell. He puts people he liked in hell. He was definitely an independent spirit, we could say.
Very independent.
Thank you, Berardo, for joining us today.
Thank you to you, Anthony. It was a pleasure.
Fugazi is John Evoluto's second solo exhibition at Stand 4. Evoluto's work engages his background as both an Italian-American and native Brooklynite. He currently lives and works in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. He received his MFA at CUNY Brooklyn College, where he studied with Elizabeth Murray, Vito Acconci, William T. Williams, and Jennifer McCoy. After the artist talked with curator and Stand 4 Gallery founder Jean Bardo, they literally ate the work manzoni.
So the name of the exhibition is Fugazi, and it's a phonetic spelling on this word that I've heard used more street slang when I was younger. And I don't believe that the word has any real derivation from the Italian language, or if it does, it's definitely contested its origins anyways. So that was really interesting for me as an idea, as an Italian-American, a first-generation Italian-American, about being authentically from someplace, especially an Italian-American from Brooklyn. What does that mean? What are traditions? How do traditions change through from one place to another? So really, the word meaning fake, I guess more on the in the vernacular, was very, very interesting for me to sort of work through to express these things. The work came out very, very organically, thinking about those ideas, but particularly through the lens of one single visual element, which is repeated throughout the whole thing, which is colloquially known 7-layer cookie or rainbow cookie. And that's sort of the visual lens in which many of these works are seen through. The way it came about really was really thinking about going to the pastry shops, which are still here in the area in southern Brooklyn, that have been here for when I was young, and primarily the Sicilian ones, and in one in particular, Villa Batte Alba on 18th Avenue in Brooklyn. I've been going there since I was younger, but they've been there for a very long time. And going into there, it's very visually arresting. The colors, the textures, all these small objects of pastries out on display, it's very impressive. I've worked with food ideas for a long time, and this time around, this sort of took center stage. To the people of Bensonhurst, from Fugazi, Blinky Palermo is actually based on a modern artwork by an artist who called himself Blinky Palermo, who was actually a German artist that took the name Blinky Palermo. That was not his name. And the name Blinky Palermo is actually a mafiosi from the Midwest who was involved in fixing fights. And this had appeared in the news, and it's still unclear to me as to why he took that name. But it's nonetheless interesting to be able to sort of like make your identity this identity of somebody else, in this case, a prominent Italian-American. And the works that the artist Blinky Palermo made were very much fitting of the aesthetic, the formal ideas of the 7-layer cookie, where they were stripes horizontally across a canvas or a panel or other objects. And he named that work to the people of New York City. So here you have a German artist appropriating the name of an Italian-American in the Midwest, living in New York City, making a work of artwork for them. So I think that the idea would be comical to sort of play with that name, to Fugazi Blinky Palermo, again insinuating that he is fake and that somehow this means something authentic. I think that I'm questioning the idea of authenticity, of what that means. When I talk about these things, I think about the plasticity of words as well. And when I use the word Fugazi in the way it's spelt, being a phonetic spelling, and the question of whether or not that word has any relevance to a word that appears in the Italian language too. But it means something to somebody. It has a collective meaning. I think that that's also very interesting, and that underscores the idea of authenticity or at least the questioning of the idea of authenticity with this work. And again, thinking about referencing modern art. With the piece Manzoni, I took the title from the name Piero Manzoni, that is the reference. And he was an Italian citizen, and I believe he never moved to the United States. So he's speaking from Italy, but he was questioning ideas, I believe, in the market with his work that he's gotten some fame for, which is just cans that say artist shit on it. I think he's pointing to maybe a critique of the market at that point, but also talking about the artist's practice and what they make and who could make work. Really the idea of the market, whatever it purchases is art, but also then at that point, whatever you make is art, whether or not you consider yourself an artist or not. I had made another work based on the face of Antonio Meucci. The history of Antonio Meucci being an uncelebrated actual inventor of the telephone. And there's a museum on Staten Island called the Garibaldi Meucci Museum, where Garibaldi stayed for 4 years after exile, living with Meucci in his house, and the museum is in his house. The face itself is taken as a digital scan from his actual death mask that is on display at the museum. When I visited the museum, I was sort of like taken aback by this work and just thinking about, how his face, his actual face is right there in front of us, and this idea of transfer throughout time of something physical. Like we could see his face because that's an actual impression of his face that has lasted until now, and it's replicable. And the idea of voice traveling over space from one place to another. And I wanted to sort of think about those things. Even though he was never accredited to making the telephone or inventing the telephone, we have these little spaces like the Garibaldi Meucci Museum that have preserved the name and how it has echoed throughout time in small ways and changed. And I wanted to sort of combine, this under-celebrated figure of really, you can't even say Italian-American because he wasn't Italian proper because the country hadn't existed yet. But I can't imagine him not thinking, while he had the revolutionary there who was in the process of formulating the idea of Italy. And, I think about the cookie, and this cookie is not really, from what I've studied, not an Italian cookie. It's something that was invented here in the States to sort of show someone's heritage or pride of the Italian, being Italian. And it's just funny to me how this idea sort of had its roots in its founding, not only certainly in Italy, but some figure of this unification was here in the States thinking about that. And then it got transferred abroad. And this cookie too, it's not the flag of Italy. It has its colors. It's oriented wrong. It's not the same orientation of flag. There's been some change of it, but this improvisation has totally been taken on. So all of these ideas making this mishmash of meetings of very divergent phenomenon, people, places, and ideas coalescing to be this one thing. So I made this painting with Meucci's face, the scan of Meucci's face coming out from this cookie. So it was interesting for me to think about, something which is Meucci's face that precluded the country of Italy. And then you have this cookie that was made here by Americans to commemorate their heritage of coming from that country. The Meucci Martorana is the little marzipan faces that I've made. So these are made in the actual tradition that the frutta martorana are made. And they're 100% edible. And the tradition comes from, I believe, a convent in Sicily called Martorana. I think a local figure of the church of higher power was coming down. I believe it was a cardinal or a bishop, and used to inspect the convents to see that they're spending money properly. And the trees were not as full of fruit as some of the nuns would like in anticipation for his visit. So they made these fruits out of almond paste and painted them and inserted them into the trees to make them look more rich, and so that they could get more money from the church, which they eventually did because of this. So whether or not that's true, I'm assuming that is a tale. And it is at Villa Abate Alba. They do continue that tradition up until today of hand painting them. And I thought that was an interesting way to express something, putting something in place that isn't, this figure of Antonio Meucci being a figure that could have been associated with making the telephone on a very wide scale, but wasn't. So this idea of making a confection out of him was also pretty interesting to me. My technique comes from a place where really thinking about the word that we started with, which was fugazi, making paint and transforming it into something else, not only two-dimensional, but three-dimensional. So, making something that's an imposter in a physical way, not in a two-dimensional space, but a three-dimensional space. So it's akin to sculpture, really, at that point. There's definitely a lot of things in here that I haven't done in the past that are new, especially using foam in fugazi. I could have made that 100% out of paint, but I think out of expediency of time and resources that I did not make it fully out of paint. I think that work would have taken probably about 1.5 years to 2 years to complete. The effect of the pandemic and being home for an extended period of time definitely affected my work. Psychologically, it was hard for me because I also lost my main means of income as I owned a wine bar, and the hospitalities industry was kind of devastated by this. I did a lot of thinking and more introspection. And I think that, in many ways that would probably be immeasurable that this affected how I went about making this work. I think that it allowed me to step outside of my comfort zone in a way, and to use new materials. Because why not? Life could be very, very short. Nothing, tomorrow is not promised. So you might as well just explore everything.
Riesling, sweet? Yeah. Anybody want the sweet?
There is? That's crazy. It should all be dead.
Anybody else?
Sweet?
No?
Riesling, we got some red coming. Oh, go ahead.
Go for it.
Thanks for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.